know. That's always tough to ask me because I feel like I don't know. I guess the best thing, what I would recommend is to try your best to be as original as possible. I just feel like a lot of the times, you know, people feel like there's a more so in the rap community, people look at music as like a money making thing. So they end up making songs that everybody's already heard. And it's just a repetitive, like how many times are we gonna talk about guns? How many times are we gonna talk about, fucking somebody bitch, or how many times are we gonna talk about, all these things. And I think the same thing applies to really all art forms now because of streaming and because of like what the music industry has come to with playlisting. Like, oh, I want to get playlisted. Oh, I want to da. It's like, man, the more you try to make something that somebody else has made, the more you set yourself up to not be noticed by really anyone. You just are a part of the commotion. And for me, I think it was important to try to take a step because I used to get mad when people would call me an R&B person. Like I don't have no R&B on my phone. I don't even listen to R&B. And I think that I try to display that through, sonics. Of course, like I sing like I grew up in church. It's like, yeah, that's inevitable. Because I did grow up in church and I do have these influences and that's how I approach my vocals. But I think that the best thing to do is just try to figure out what your sound is and stick to that and ride it out until you feel like you've mastered it and keep growing in that lane. I just would hate, like it's like way too many pastors and stuff. Like it's like, oh, you starting a church too?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I say that all the time. Yeah, 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 for
So
sure.
I'm like, let's just do something new, and try your best to see through that way. And people will talk about you and people will, there'll be a lot of backlash. I mean, there's a lot of backlash with me. I have conversations with people all the time, not all the time, but I've had a few conversations with people where they're just like, man, I really wish you would work with another producer. I really wish you would like turn up on the production. And I'm like, man, I want to take all L's myself. If I need to, take a L to learn something, I would rather do that because like you said earlier, like, yeah, it is about art. Like you don't go ask, you know, Picasso to go like have a session with somebody. It's like, that's just not how I approach it. I really do approach it as if I'm painting my own picture. And if I got to get better by myself and lose, you know, a lot, keep putting out stuff that nobody listens to. Eventually, I'm gonna get to a point where, yeah, somebody gonna listen to this and somebody gonna recognize this because I've taken the time to master it, and I still feel like I'm taking the time to master it.
Yeah, that's very genius what you're saying because heard this quote by Barry Gordy. Barry Gordy said, "At Motown, we stayed true to ourselves, and the world just came around."
Exactly.
You got
That's
to
what.
realize when they started, what we think is traditional R&B now was a lane that really was because everybody was doing rock and roll.
Yeah.
But people weren't really doing ballads and stuff. So he said, at Motown, we stayed true to who we were, and the world just came around. And
Yeah.
so I think that was crazy.
Yeah.
Something else, like you also had a project came out.